Do you ever look at other people's film photos and they're all popping off the Instagram feed like nobody's business, and while yours, they look like they're taken by a potato? Yeah, I've been there too. At first, I thought I just needed better film. Nope. Then I thought I needed a better camera. Still no. Eventually, I turned to Google. And sometimes the internet can be a magical place, and sometimes it just gives you stuff like, try a better location. Cheers, mate. Why didn't I think of that? So I figured things out the way I figure most things out, by actually shooting a load of film and making a load of mistakes. What I found out is going to blow your bloody socks off. But before I get into the real secret sauce, I'm going to talk about a couple of the more obvious tips that I've seen. Obviously, the type of film you use can change the way the color in your photos looks. I mean, Ektar 100 is really saturated and Portra is quite pastel. But this isn't the point. The point is getting the best colors possible, even if you shoot in Kodak Color Plus. And yeah, location does matter. I mean, if you're swaggering around the Vegas Strip, then you're probably going to see more color than if you're in the, I don't know, grey, beige streets of Manchester. But neither of those are game changers. But the next three things totally changed the look and feel of my photography, no matter what film I was shooting. For the longest time, I was just shooting whenever I had the time. Usually that was around midday, under the most flat, grey, colourless sky that you could imagine. And then one day I headed out in the morning. I first saw the sky was blue, and then it was kind of golden, and the light was really, really good. And obviously the same thing can happen on sunny evenings as well. This kind of changes everything about the color in your photography. Instead of having this flat, dull light, you end up with soft, beautiful, cinematic tones. I hate using those words. But understanding and knowing how to harness the world's natural light source is a really big step to making sure that you have beautiful color in any of your photography. And that comes whether you're shooting film or digital, to be fair. If you know when it's going to be the most beautiful color, or you know what time of day is the best to get the best color, then you're going to get more interesting photos with incredible color. But just shooting at the right time of day won't fix your color if you aren't doing the next thing right. And this is something that I messed up for a long time because I didn't really understand film that well. And it's a mistake that's easier to make with cheaper film stocks than it is with expensive ones. And what I'm talking about is underexposure. It's easier to mess up with cheaper film stocks like Kodak Color Plus or Kodak Ultramax because they don't have a great dynamic range. So that means, let's say you underexpose your picture, then it's going to look really muddy and grainy, and you're going to lose so much detail in the shadows, including color. So the best bet with all film, but especially with cheaper film stocks, is to try to overexpose by one stop, just to err on the side of caution. Otherwise, my best advice is to just try your best to make sure that you're exposing the picture properly. If there's a big difference between your shadows and highlights, then especially on a cheaper film stock, it's going to be much more likely that there'll be some issue with the exposure somewhere because it just doesn't have a brilliant dynamic range. Either way, generally I would expose for the shadows, or at least for like the mid shadows, just to try and make sure that you've got a good exposure all the way through. Generally, your highlights, if you're overexposed a bit, you'll be able to get back most of that information, so you wouldn't worry too much about that. Getting correct exposure will absolutely make sure that you keep all of those colors that deserve to be there in that image. But this does lead me on to something that's much more controversial. But first, if you're just starting film photography and you feel like you're stumbling around in the dark, then I've got good news for you, because I've put together a film photography course that basically has everything in it that I wish that I knew when I first started. Cameras, settings, how to make sure your film camera isn't broken, how to use the flash properly, how to make sure that your work gets seen by the right people, So if you want to try it out, then you can use the code FILM50 at checkout and you'll get 50% off, because I want to help out the people that have been supporting me all this time. All right then, let's get on to the most controversial part of this whole video. And it's something that a lot of people just don't want to hear. But the truth is, every pro film photographer that you really love and look up to edits their film photos. Film isn't magic, it still needs correction. All labs will develop differently and scan differently, and all scanners will have a different color cast. So it's very rare for you to get a real, true depiction of how this film photo should actually look. So the vast majority of the time, if you're out there thinking, why doesn't my film photo look the same as my favorite photographers? And the truth is, it is just because they're editing and they've got a particular style. So you're probably not going to emulate that exact style, but that is probably it. Even minor tweaks like adjusting the highlights and shadows and playing around with the colors in Lightroom can completely transform a picture. Especially with oranges, greens, and blues, they will probably make it look more realistic than it actually does. You're not cheating, you're just trying to make your film photo look how it looked when you took the photo, or how it felt when you took the photo. So yeah, if you want film photos that actually pop and the color actually really feels how it should feel, you're probably going to have to edit them. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. If you want to do it purely with film, then the most saturated film is probably XR100. So to recap, shoot when the light's actually good. I mean, it could be midday when the sun is blaring down. You'll still get a lot of saturated color, but the morning, the evening, it'll be totally different. Get your exposure right, and sadly for some people, you're going to have to edit those bad boys. And once again, if you're serious about stepping up that film game, then go and take a look at the link in the description. FILM50 for 50% off. Now, get out there, shoot some film, get those colors popping. Thank you, take care, subscribe, sign up to my free newsletter, and just have a great day, a great week. Enjoy yourself.